by the end of series 3, we were like living and breathing Moordale.
Yeah.
Like we knew instantly, like that's a Moordale thing. That's not, we don't want to see that. The kind of look and feel of Sex Education is something that we're all incredibly proud of. And it really was a collaboration between all of the creative heads on this production, which I think is a key to its success, actually, and the success of being committed to such a kind of unique stylized project that was really exciting to be involved in.
When it was discussed that it needed to be timeless and sort of non-specific and very much a fresh world that everyone could relate to, and almost having a sense of nostalgia to it, but not quite knowing why. Just it's a feeling, isn't it? That was very exciting, because I kind of thought what's nostalgic to you is not nostalgic to me, because we've had different backgrounds, different lives, so it was very interesting to come up with a way of thinking that would make everyone feel some form of emotion or some form of recollection, or plus of course having the John Hughes little dash or sprinkle, I call it a sprinkle of the John Hughes era. So for me, in terms of costume, it was very much more about, I worked in a very different way in my mind to how I usually work. I kind of started thinking of each character and the personalities of the character, and what sort of fabrics that character, or what sort of colors or styles that type of character would equal. So that's why when you look at all the characters, you can't really place where everything comes from. So you kind of, people often say to me, is that vintage, or is that contemporary, or where's that from? But it was kind of borrowing from the past, but being very selective depending on that personality of that character.
It was different to anything I'd ever designed before, like you say, because I'd come in and there'd already been 2 seasons established. So it was different to Rosa and Sam in that I already knew the characters that I was designing the looks for. So I knew them as a viewer and as a fan. But actually that was quite amazing for me, because it meant that I could see how these characters had developed. And then from my job point of view was just to push them that little bit further. So just obviously with teenagers, they change their look constantly. So it's quite a good age group in terms of having that flexibility, that freedom to enhance their looks from one season to the other.
With the color palettes and things, I mean, that was the most crucial thing to be communicating with everybody about, because it's that thing of how much do you put in a scene. You've got the set, and then you've got the costume. If you just have to do one little thing wrong with the costume and put some really jarring color, and the whole thing will completely lose the magic of that space. I mean, it was very much a complete everybody working together and kind of putting their bit, and then if it was too much, maybe pulling back, like I did that quite a bit at times, sort of actually, no, if I do that, that's going to be too much, and kind of, because there's a very fine balance. Definitely very fine balance to this
and
world.
I think Rosa and Em would agree that, like, by the end of series 3, we were like living and breathing Moordale. Like we knew instantly, like that's a Moordale thing. That's not, we don't want to see that. It was quite amazing. We were set in the fictional town of Moordale, as we know, which was in, which we were in the UK, but we very much drew on the influences of these classic American high school tropes of like the Letterman jacket and the lockers and all those beautiful things that was just, they're so iconic, and they scream, school and institution, be it British or American, and like crossing that boundary between those two. And we wanted our school to be, quite aspirational in some ways, but quite relatable in other ways, but also just iconically Moordale, iconically sex ed, our world that we've created. We wanted our viewers to be kind of drawn into that kind of that kind of world. So, you know, it was like you said, leaning on the what different people relate to, those kind of classic coming of age films that they would have experienced at school as a pupil, but they also would have experienced as that at that age or during that period in their life as a viewer of, you know, classic coming of age films.
Obviously, I start off with a very strong initial thought of what everybody should, their sort of world they should be in. I wanted everyone to be incredibly individual and be very much a certain type of, you know, the clothing being very much theirs. So kind of not trying to, so that they're very individual, you know, like Amy, for example, starts off being very much the denim girl, you know, Maeve is the black, you know, that wears black, and Eric is the colourful, completely over the top pattern person. So there was very much that sort of thing. So in the first series, there was very little input from them because they hadn't sort of discovered their characters in a way. Obviously, they'd read the script and their characters that were being developed, but they weren't in their characters yet because I hadn't started performing them. Second series, they definitely had more of a view of what their characters would be. But it's kind of an organic thing when we get into the fitting. So yes, if they didn't think something was quite their character, they'd say, you know, but generally we were pretty much on the same wavelength, which was great. You know, we would be saying, actually, yeah, no, that jacket is completely not right. You know, it might have initially, I might have gone, oh yeah, that's very, I mean, I still walk in the shops all the time. I go, oh God, that's very Lily.
Both series I'd watched thinking, God, what is such an amazing job for hair and makeup, because not only it's so stylized, but also it's one of the only shows where you actually see characters who could look like they'd spent an hour and a half in makeup, but it's not questioned. It's like, it's just, that's the world they live in. So the show talks about such incredible, like relatable topics, but you still get lost, and you can, it's still an escapism for the viewer because everyone looks so incredible. So you still get lost in the show, but at the same time, the topics are so relatable. So that's what, for me, it was such an amazing show to be a part of, because I could actually really go to town and be really creative with all these characters without thinking, oh, would a teenager actually be able to do that? You know, would someone be able to spend an hour and a half blow drying their hair before they went to school? But that's not something that's, you don't have to worry about. You can really just, you know, push the boat out with everyone.
Between season 1 and season 2, and then season 2, season 3, you know, it kind of became more challenging, and we had bigger set pieces and bigger sets, and we moved around. But I think you know, we're really committed to that kind of aesthetic. We basically, like, from a design point of view, from my team's point of view, we kind of can't drop the ball. So even though like, we have a lot of sets, it may not read on screen, or it may not be totally obvious as a viewer, but like, there's a lot of different layers of different characters and different sets and different places and parts of the school. And we're just very, very mindful that if we are to go to a location that isn't quite right for the show, or if we want to, like, kind of, if we need to do something quickly and we're, you know, because we're up against time, or there's restrictions that we can't control or anything like that, like, we're just really always like, and you know, our producers and our directors and everyone is very respectful of this, and we just take that time to kind of go, actually, this isn't right, or this is right. And because we know that time when we and it must be the same for Emily and Rosa as well, that time when we drop the ball or we will be jarring, going back to the overall look of the film, of the production, sorry, like that time when we don't do something properly, like, will be the time that, so we have to, like, hold ourselves to a really high standard and just keep committing to making it better and better, which is obviously great because we all just want to do the best job we can possibly do, but we don't make life easy for ourselves, basically.
Everybody gets dressed in that show, every person in the background, everyone gets their model treatment. And I think that only happens because of having a strong team, because it's all about the detailing, I think. I think, you know, sometimes, you know, people go, oh, but they're just in the background, you can't really see it, but you even if you don't see it, you just feel it, or it's just there, or the color, or it's maybe the shape, or even if someone's walking right in the background, and if they were just wearing just completely, I don't know, a tracksuit or something, you know, it just wouldn't, it would just be, you would just see it somehow. You wouldn't have that energy. So, you know, that's why everybody's got to be dressed, and it's commitment. It's absolutely all due to a fantastic team.
No.
It's my vagina.
Sit down.
No, that is my vagina in the photo.
Sit down.
No, it's my vagina.
Now, thank you, Maeve. Settle down, please.
You're both wrong. It's my vagina.
It cannot be all your vaginas.
I also have a vagina.
Well, congratulations. Please sit down.
It's my vagina.
Oh, enough. Thank you.
Vagina.
I understand what you are all trying to do.
It is my vagina.
You don't have a vagina. You do not have a vagina in the same way that I do not have a vagina.
It's my vagina.
Please, would you all just sit down? It is required that you...
It's my vagina. It's my vagina.
Vaginas!
It's my vagina.
One of my challenges for Maeve, I think, was to try and get back that sort of, that more of an edgier vibe again, with knowing that, because I think the bleach for me was, if I could do anything, bleaching would be like, I just think that's very much her character. So it was finding out how I could get that back without having to put her hair through that sort of process. Lily was a really, really fun character. Lily's always a fun character, I think, from everyone's point of view, just because she's so unique and individual, and she doesn't wear makeup in the same like traditional sense that a lot of young girls wear makeup. She wears it more in a way to like express her personality. So she is always someone really fun to work with, and also because for series 3 you see her develop in such a, like, you see her from episodes 1 to 3, she's still got that really fun look, and then as Hope comes in and completely breaks her down, and then you see her for the first time without any hair or makeup, and she just sits in assembly with that really sad low ponytail, which I was trying to help the audience feel sort of sorry for her, because she's sort of lost the Lily that we all know and love, and Hope has done this to her. And then by the time we get back to the end of episode 8, she's back to who she is, and she's celebrating who she is again. And that's why I wanted to try and go, quite big with that look.
I didn't find any characters that challenging. Different scenes, perhaps it was more, they were more challenging, but I guess the more complex character that for me that took a lot of thought was probably Hope. Initially, she comes in dancing and stuff, and everybody's like, who's she, and all that. And so I wanted kids, teenagers, to look at her and go, God, she looks cool. She's cool, she's cool. So I wanted to have her character to be like that initially, but I did, when she started showing her other side and her complex and intimidating and controlling side, I didn't want to then have to completely change her costumes. I didn't want that sort of very visible transition. So I kind of wanted it to be a smooth transition, but for the costume to make complete sense when you realize that she was actually really repressed and really very actually quiet and happy, and she was literally trying to control everything around her because her life was actually a little bit of a mess in a way, very personal life was torturous. So with those clothes, with the costumes, I kind of wanted the fabric to be quite stiff and quite hard. So you could translate it as being quite kind of utilitarian and kind of quite cool and slightly trendy. But then when she starts becoming, stern, it actually becomes quite military. So it kind of has two personalities. It's depending on how you wear it, or how you're projecting yourself in the costume. So it doesn't come up and go, oh, how can she be this kind of person? Why would she be wearing that? You actually go, oh yeah, oh God, okay, I see that as well, So I guess that was my challenge.